My husband is meeting up for dinner and drinks with another woman. Alright, Reddit, I need some advice because I'm spiraling a bit and don't know how to handle this without coming off like a jealous mess. I'm usually pretty chill, but this situation with my husband has me second-guessing myself, and I could use some outside perspective. My husband, 42M, and I, 35F, have been married for 8 years, together for 12, and we've got a solid relationship overall. We've got 2 kids, 6 and 4, a house in the suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina, and a life that feels pretty darn good most days. He's a dependable guy, a great dad, and we've always trusted each other. But this thing with him meeting up with another woman has me feeling uneasy, and I'm not sure how to bring it up without sounding like I'm overreacting. Here's the full story. For context, my husband, let's call him Mark, works in project management for a tech company. He's been with the same company for over a decade, and he's the kind of guy who's friendly with everyone but doesn't have a ton of super close friends. He's more of a work hard, come home to family type, though he does grab beers with colleagues or old college buddies now and then. About 2 years ago, he started mentioning this woman he worked with. Let's call her Sarah, 26F. Sarah was a new hire back then, fresh out of grad school, and Mark was assigned to mentor her on a couple of projects. He'd talk about her casually, like how she was picking up the job quickly or how she had a knack for presentations. I didn't think much of it at the time. He's mentored plenty of people, men and women, and it's never been a big deal. I met Sarah once at a company holiday party last year, and she seemed nice enough, bubbly, ambitious, maybe a little flirty in that young professional way, but nothing that set off alarm bells. She was polite, asked me about my job. I'm a part-time graphic designer and mostly a stay-at-home mom, and that was that. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago. Mark comes home from work and mentions that Sarah reached out to him. She left the company a few months ago for a new job, and apparently, she's been struggling with some work-related issues. He says she asked to meet up for dinner and drinks to catch up and talk through some stuff. I was a little surprised because, while Mark's friendly with former colleagues, he doesn't usually do one-on-one dinner and drinks meetups, especially not with someone he hasn't mentioned in months. I asked a few questions, like how she was doing and why they were meeting, and he said she was stressed about her new role and wanted his advice, since he'd been her mentor. Okay, fair enough. Mark's good at giving career advice, and he's helped out other colleagues before. But something about the dinner and drinks part didn't sit right with me. Like, why not coffee? Or a quick lunch? Why does it have to be an evening thing with alcohol involved? I tried to play it cool and said, "Oh, that sounds nice. Mind if I join you guys?" I wasn't trying to be controlling. I genuinely thought it could be fun to catch up with Sarah and hear about her new job. Plus, I figured if it was just a friendly work thing, there'd be no issue. Mark hesitated for a second, long enough for me to notice, and then said, "Well, she might want to talk about some sensitive job stuff, and it could be awkward with you there." That was the first red flag. Awkward? Why would it be awkward for his wife to join a casual dinner? I pushed back a little, saying, "I don't mind just listening. I won't, but if it's work talk." He doubled down, saying Sarah might feel more comfortable one-on-one, and I should trust him because it's just a mentor thing. That phrase, "trust me," rubbed me the wrong way, not because I don't trust him, but because it felt like he was shutting down the conversation. I let it go for the moment, but I was definitely uneasy. A few days later, I noticed Mark was acting a little cagey with his phone, like tilting it away when he got a text while we were watching TV. It wasn't blatant, but it was enough to make me wonder. Then, out of the blue, he tells me he's rescheduling the meetup with Sarah to a day when I'd be out of town. I'm part of a book club with some mom friends, and we had a weekend retreat planned in Asheville. Nothing fancy, just a couple of nights away to drink wine and talk about novels we barely read. When he mentioned moving the dinner to that weekend, I got this sinking feeling. I asked why the change, and he said it was just more convenient for Sarah's schedule. That didn't add up to me. Why was he so set on meeting her when I wouldn't be around? I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, and he got a little defensive, saying, "It's not a big deal. You're making it into something it's not." Maybe I was, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I don't know if Sarah couldn't make the new date or what, but a couple of days later, Mark told me the meetup was back on for the original day, except now it was lunch instead of dinner and drinks. He said it made more sense for their schedules, and then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "You can come if you want." I wasn't sure if he was inviting me because he felt guilty or because he genuinely didn't care, but I decided to go. I wanted to see for myself what this was all about. The lunch was at a casual spot in downtown Raleigh, one of those farm-to-table places with overpriced salads and craft beer. Sarah was already there when we arrived, and she seemed a little surprised to see me but covered it well with a big smile and a "so nice to see you again." We made small talk for a bit, and she did open up about her job issues. Apparently, her new boss is a micromanager, and she's feeling overwhelmed. Mark gave her some advice about setting boundaries and communicating with her team, and it all seemed pretty above board. But I couldn't help noticing a few things. Sarah was very comfortable with Mark, like touching his arm when she laughed and leaning in close when she talked. Mark didn't reciprocate, but he didn't exactly pull away either. And there were moments when she'd reference inside jokes from their time working together, and I felt like a third wheel. It wasn't blatant, but it was enough to make me feel like there was a history there I didn't fully understand. When Sarah went to the bathroom, I asked Mark if everything was okay, and he seemed annoyed, like I was reading too much into things. The rest of the lunch was fine, but I left feeling more confused than before. Sarah was having legit work problems, so maybe Mark was telling the truth about the purpose of the meetup. But the whole dinner and drinks plan, the hesitation about me joining, and the attempt to reschedule when I'd be gone, it's all nagging at me. Plus, Sarah's vibe at lunch felt a little too familiar for someone who's just a former colleague. Here's where I'm at now. I don't think Mark is cheating, at least not physically. He's never given me a reason to doubt his loyalty before, and he's always been open about his whereabouts. He's met up with other friends or colleagues one-on-one before, including women, and it's never bothered me. Like last year, he grabbed coffee with a female coworker who was going through a divorce, and he was just being a good listener. But this feels different. The evening plans, the alcohol, the secrecy, it's hitting a nerve I didn't even know I had. And Sarah being younger and, frankly, pretty attractive doesn't help my insecurities. I'm not proud of it, but I'm human. I want to talk to Mark about how this made me feel, but I'm struggling with how to bring it up without sounding like I'm accusing him of something or being overly jealous. I don't want to come off as the controlling wife who can't handle her husband having female friends. But I also don't want to ignore my gut, especially since the whole rescheduling thing felt sneaky. I've been replaying that lunch in my head, wondering if I'm blowing things out of proportion or if there's something I'm missing. Mark's been acting normal since the lunch, but I can't shake this feeling that there's more to this than he's letting on. So, Reddit, how do I approach this conversation with him? I want to be honest about my feelings without making it a fight or putting him on the defensive. Has anyone else dealt with a situation like this, where everything seems fine on the surface, but something just feels off? And for those of you who've had partners meet up with opposite-sex friends, how do you set boundaries without being unreasonable? I'd also love to hear from anyone who's been the Sarah in this scenario. What was your perspective? Am I overthinking this? Or is my gut trying to tell me something? Thanks for reading this novel. I just needed to get it all out. No TLDR because I think the details matter here. Appreciate any advice you've got.